welcome to another AV Jam. Long time no see. It's us three again, and this time two awesome guests. First one, we'll start with Zach. Give us a wave, mate.
Hello.
And all the way across the pond, we've got Frank. Hello, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. So, what I wanted to discuss, or what we wanted to discuss, is IT. And not whether AV is IT, because we've not got enough hours in the year, I think, to discuss that. It's more about what's needed AV IT. There's a lot of conversations about AV being IT. If it is it not? How we've got to play nice, how we've got to start talking to one another, but nobody actually says, why? What? What have we got to do? What have you got to learn? It's just go and learn IT, become IT. But nobody knows why. So, two guests, Zach, started just like I did, really, just cannon fodder in IT and knowing how to put things on a network or not put things on a network, as we shouldn't have done half of the time. And then Frank having probably the best job in the business and hacking for a living. Just ethical hacker, something I've always been.
Are you full-time hacking, Frank?
Well, no, I work as a design engineer at Diversified, but this is kind of my side thing. You know, I have an active IT, a thirst for IT knowledge, so it's always on my side.
Amazing, I love that.
Honestly,
thank you.
I noticed it. It was your Twitter handle, and it said all your letters after your name, where you get all these letters. And that's when I realised one of them was the certified ethical hacker, which just being allowed to hack for a living and being paid for it, it's just mint.
It's amazing. It is. I mean, and there's quite a lot of people
at the same time.
Well, I mean, you do it the right way, you're perfectly fine. There's actually companies that are dedicated for penetration testing and stuff like that. That's exclusively what they do. So, you know, part of my gig is, so I have a CTSD, which, you know, I feel I'm pretty decent on the AV side of things, but on the IT, I try to manage my certs. I have quite a few certs, and I have a CEH, which is a certified ethical hacker. I also have a CHFI, which is a computer hacking and forensic investigator. So it's basically, you know, I'll give a little intro about the whole hacking thing, right? It's not as cool as it sounds, right? Because, and this is where
Don't spoil the dream, Frank. Don't take away the dream.
Don't ruin it.
You know, I will say this before I get into anything technical. I appreciate and I really like your show because of the honesty and how candid this is. You know, it's not a lot of times we get to come on and just chat away, you know, with our minds open. So great work, guys. You know, you're a cornerstone of this community. I appreciate that. So it's not the coolness of it. There's a lot of things that you got to understand and learn, basically. And that's kind of where I'm going to let you guys segue into our main conversation today, because we're trying to understand, why does AV have an issue with IT, right? And I'm not even going to get into the whole AV is IT. That's a matter of perspective. You know, it's how you look at things. So I'm not going to get into that, right? We can argue about it all day long. But what's important and what I've identified is that there's a knowledge gap. There's a lack of understanding of what AV and IT, how they come together. You know, that's the problem. Whenever a lot of AV people talk about IT, I think what they're referring to is networking. You know, and that's why they keep saying AV is not IT. You're right. AV is not networking. So my first piece of advice to anybody looking to bridge this gap is you got to get your terminology right. You know, try to understand the others. Like, I would not go to a design engineer and say, hey, my touch panel doesn't look good. That's the job for the programmer and the GUI designer, right? So similarly, on the IT side of things, we got to understand that, you know, there's a differentiation in the terminology. That's really how we begin.
Can I just end on that? I was buzzing.
Yeah, well, that's mate. That is the end. That is the end.
But it's so true. I mean, there's so many different things, and a lot of the time it feels like a lot of us in AV will go and do. I wanted to just be more IT, but it's mad. It always goes back to AV. But we'll go out and we'll talk to a customer and we'll do a design. We'll do a proper needs analysis. We'll then talk to the general contractor. We'll talk to facilities management. We'll talk to the Sparkies. We'll talk to all of them about what we need to put into their building and why. Yet then there's always a blocker that we can't do that to the IT guys.
You got it.
Why not?
Why not?
Irrelevant of whether we're the same thing or not. Why is that blocker? But we always know, and we can sit here and say, well, when you're talking to the GC, you need to make sure you give him X, Y, and Z.
Right.
No one's ever say, here's what you give the network guy. My biggest argument is, and Zach can testify for this, because Zach worked with us, Zach used to put stuff on our network. IT was never always about saying no, even though people like to think that the IT department does nothing but say no. It isn't about saying no. It's about their no. It's easier than giving the real answer because they're lazy bastards half the time. But it's not no. It's tell me why. You couldn't walk into someone else and say, I'm going to knock that wall down. But if you said, I'm going to knock it down because it's going to give you this, this, and this, they'll say, yeah, all right then. IT is exactly the same. I'm going to put this on your network. No. Actually, I'm going to put this on your network. Here's what it does on your network. Here's what its security is. Here's just so you know what its security capabilities are. And here's what it's going to achieve. How many of them are still actually going to say no? What they're wanting is not just throw 100 boxes on your network. It's why.
Sure.
And that's the bit that we never seem to give. It's why. But at the same time, for the people that will always say, we're not IT, of course, they've never been told.
And he's gone.
That's a good point. While he fixes,
yeah.
Kev said Zach will testify and never shut up and came up for air so Zach could actually speak. So while Kev fixes his thing, why don't we let Zach explain, because you've only dabbled in AV, but you've lived IT.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what we're about, but what's your view?
Yeah, someone from the IT, I mean, I've not done it in a while now, but it was very much, I think we were in a unique position because the stuff I was putting in our network was very much test or let's get it on as quick as possible. And we just need to get this on so we can try it out or, see how it works, that sort of thing. I've not personally been that customer side of it. So it was, although when I was in IT, we did say no plenty. My position was kind of, I'll say yes and then come back to you guys with a particular set of questions, like Kev said, not just, put this on your network, because then of course the IT guy is just going to say no, but you need that back and forth, that question. You've got a good IT guy when he's not just saying no, when he's willing to have those conversations and dig a little bit deeper, not just say no, like a lot of people did.
That was the default answer, wasn't it?
Yeah. And rightly so. I mean, it's they have their reasons for saying no, right? And like to Kev's point, like I said, it's the information gap between the two trades, right? And unfortunately, for some reason, we seem to stop at IT. Like, no, I can't talk to IT. Like even the conversations go towards, well, that's an IT thing. We'll let them handle it, right? The first thing that I would like to, hopefully get the message across is, in terms of a design, when we talk about AV design, and I'm going to speak specifics because of my background as a design engineer, an AV design, although our implemented product is very much experiential, it's visible, it's visual, our designs are very two-dimensional. It's AutoCAD, it's drawings, it's cable HDMI input 1 to output 2. It's very specific. It's very two-dimensional. Here's the funny part. IT is not visible. It's a very two-dimensional thing. You can't experience IT, a large part of it. I'm not going to, go deep into it. But the design portion of IT is very visual. That's something we don't understand, right? If you go to an IT guy and tell him, I want to plug this into port 45 on your switch, they don't care because that means nothing to them. What you need to be telling them is, I have 6 devices that's going to need a separate VLAN, and this is how I envision it. Don't do AutoCAD, do PowerPoint. do simple presentations that explain how your devices are going to go on their network. Conceptualize the network. Go to them and talk to them. They'll come back with a better response. They'll say, no, I can't do that because this is the problem. But if you want your device on my network, I could potentially do this for you. That's the conversation that needs to happen. Visualize your networks, design it before you go to the IT guys, and show it to them. Explain how it needs to be on a network, not a port. Don't ask for a port. Asking for a port is default. We always, on our AV designs, we need 4 data ports. We need XYZ bandwidth. Those are the easy things. Visualize your own network. And if at any point your network is interacting with the customer's network, make sure they can see it. The IT people will appreciate it. They will understand it better.
Yeah, I think a lot of times as well is IT people, their network is kind of like their baby. You know, they like to look after the network. They're not just gonna. So it's more having that conversation and not just saying, you know, like you said, Frank, don't just put this on here. It's, you know, this is the end goal. How can we best get to that end goal? You tell me. I don't know your network, and you know, doing UC consultancy, that's kind of conversations that we have at the minute. I know it's a little different than AV, but it's, you know, I don't particularly understand your network, but here's the end goal, you know, and then bring those IT people into that conversation to, you know, how best to meet that goal. It's not just like, do this because, you know, you're like, no, that's the IT person is like, no, that's my network. Why are you telling me what to do with my network, you know? And then, you know, you're going to get those brash people that kind of push back and just say no. They're not open to have those conversations. But if you come to it with that different point of view.
Playing devil's advocate for a minute, if I may, where a lot of, and this isn't my opinion, but this is the noise that I'm hearing. I don't have an opinion. The more of our devices have USB on them, and the more of our devices have an RJ45 socket on them, then what people are generally saying is we're having our kit's more IT than it ever was, more IT than AV. Is that the argument? Because if you design a system, Kev, like an AV over IP system, and don't design it to be on an AV LAN, then the IT manager is going to shit a brick because of what Zach said. It's my baby. Get that kit off my network.
That's funnily enough, that is a whole other conversation. Now, there is one big argument with AV kit. Most AV kit has had a network point for as long as I can remember. For as long as I've been doing design, most AV kit has had a network port. Just because it's got it doesn't mean you have to plug it in, first and foremost. How many people now just love the idea of put it all on the network, converge your network? Bullshit. Converge your network, don't do it. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Not every network is made to be converged. Not every network has any need to ever be converged. So just because it's got it, don't plug it in. So is it more IT kit now? Not a lot of it has changed. Now, there are some customers that will want it all on their network or will allow you to put it all on their network. It's a bigger conversation, but that's where for a lot of AV, them scarier conversations do come into play because you are then talking network. You're telling them exactly how that traffic shapes across that network, what it's going to be using, what its security is, and how its security is going to work with their network. And security, Frank can testify more than any, there's 1,001 ways to skin a cat. Now, absolutely. A lot of AV at the minute will look at the manufacturer's guidelines of their security and say, well, that's it, that's all you can do. We're then trusting AV manufacturers to know their IT. And half of the time, they don't know that. I remember when AV over IP started really getting its legs a couple of years back, and then there was that argument that they all come out and said, we've got 802.1x, we're the most secure out there. Thinking, if that's anything you've got, mate, you need to go home. Because you've got a massive issue right now that gives me root access to anything, but you've got 802.1x, well done. So there is an argument that we're almost leaning too much on the manufacturers, and they sometimes know as much as we do. I'm not going to say they're wrong. They're almost later to the party than IT. They need to learn more from IT, but like the rest of us do. We've all got to understand it. Do we all need to become network security geeks? No. But enough to have that conversation to say, it's going on your network to do this, and this end goal, we can win, can't we? Can we?
Is this not just the entire point of this whole conversation? IT is just a label that is branded onto pretty much every single part that you want to brand it onto, because everything is now IT.
Agreed.
Right. So about communication, we already do this for some of our key clients, right? I know that you'll provide what Frank's talked about, a PowerPoint show of this is what's actually going to happen. And we sit down. I don't see any of these issues with my small amount of customers that I work with, because we have those clear conversations.
Sure.
It's this other level that seems to be happening in the AV Twitterverse, in the social media land, of people that are so deep down in AV going, well, I've got to departmentalize in my brain that that's an IT person, so they sit over there somewhere, and I'm keeping my stuff here, and nothing's happening. If they just open that conversation and just say, look, let's just take this, we're going to do this, this is what it wants to be the result of, this is what should be the result, right? How do we do that? That's it.
True.
I agree. I don't think it's much different talking to them. When I first started this, I would go and talk to, as I said, general contractors, facilities management, Sparkies, whatever. Yeah. I'm no electrician. No one should let me near high voltage ever, not even low voltage. But I can easily go and have a conversation just to tell them I need this and why.
Yep.
Where's the fear factor? And like you said, is it because everyone's got this in their head that it's IT, everything's IT, everything's got to be IT, and then there's like a fear factor that, well, no, that's IT.
Yeah, it's almost like there's an ego involved that, oh no, as soon as I cross over into IT, I've lost my identity. That is not the case. And, whenever any person, like I've constantly said that in my perspective, AV is a part of IT, is the way I say it. The main reason why I go on that rant is because we got to understand that there are trades out there that we have to associate with, and the best way to get under that blanket is to understand them, right? We've gone out of our way to understand architects. We understand electricians. We do everything with all these people. IT, it may need a little bit more of education on our end, but I think it's just achievable. As soon as we get the knowledge base on our hand, we don't need, and this is the saddest conversation. Any IT person will attest to this. The minute somebody goes in and says, I have like a bunch of devices I want to put on the AV VLAN, they'll say, get out. Because the thing is, you don't understand what you're asking for, right? Don't ask for an AV VLAN. Ask for, I have 6 devices. This is the goal. How do you want to put it? Let the AV people, let the IT people tell you how to play with their network. I mean, we wouldn't let anybody else come in and say, hey, I think this projector should point to the rear of the room. No, we want it where the screen is, right? We wouldn't let them touch our domain. It's similar everywhere, Reach out, visualize, conceptualize, put it in words, just communicate what you need. And that's the core of it. And also, and this is a matter of scale, right? We can't always assume that the network person, the person sitting in the room is the network person or is the database person. Tell them that there's a database component to this. There's a security component to this. There's a network component to this. We need those people in the room. Communicate, ask for the right people, and you'll get it. And, those conversations go much more smoother.
Yeah, that's a great place to finish. I'm ever so glad we asked you to join this, Frank, because you brought the sensibility to the conversation. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd still be talking in another half an hour and not got anywhere. So have you got... go on, Kev.
I was going to say, before we wrap, I want to let Frank tell us about his excited... You're going to beat me to it. I had to tell him that if he ever wants a gobby Brit with a dodgy haircut, I'm game.
Oh boy! So I'd like to make a tiny little announcement. There's a podcast that AV Nation runs called the IT AV Podcast. It's been run by Tim Albright since the beginning of it. I will be taking over from Tim Albright, and I think AV Jam is the place where I'm going to give you the name. We've kind of rebranded it, right? I'm going to call it the IT Factor. That's going to be the name of the podcast. So
nice.
I hopefully, I'll have all you guys on there, and my goal is simple: information. Just get it out there. Spread the word. Just get the word out.
Perfect. Well, based on today, Tim's picked the right guy in you, Frank. Great to have you on AV Jam finally.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
That was brilliant. And good luck with the show, mate. Really look forward to catching up on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I suppose then the last thing, because Frank has turned into his own rock star, and I want to get Zach to just tell everybody, we don't normally do this, but for Zach to tell everybody where people can find you, so I can get you with a lot more people in the Twitterverse to come abusing you for all your knowledge as well, Pad.
Yeah, I mean, best place to find me is on Twitter. Let me just check what my actual Twitter handle is.
Use it a lot on there. Yeah.
It's just my name, Zachary_Bennett. So feel free, reach out to me on Twitter. Yeah, not so much IT anymore or AV, more around Microsoft consultancy. So yeah, feel free. Any questions, reach out.
If anyone's got a Teams question, that's the guy. Without a doubt.
Nancy.
Honestly, I'll always send him the odd random message because he gets me out of jail a few times. Right, well, thank you very much, all. Absolutely awesome. And we will see you all on the next one. Whenever. Have fun.
Bye, guys.